And apologies for the delay, ladies and gentlemen. We had some tech issues that happened in between game one and what you see now on your screen, which is game two between Tilt Esports, World Ender, and Syndicate Coke here in the Titan Conqueror League, with Syndicate Coke taking over in that first game for the victory. We'll see if they can close it out, or if Tilt Esports World Ender will bring us to a game number 3. On the desk, my name is Ferris. I am with Ice Fire Ride. And how are we feeling heading into this game? There's a whole lot of information here to process. What is your first thoughts looking into the draft?
We have a Kane. Sorry, I'm a huge
do.
Kane lover. In the jungle, I think it's an underrated champion along with Ivern whenever it's played appropriately. But looking at the comp that they've drafted around it, I don't like it in the composition. I just like the champion. Because on the other side, you have LeBlanc, Ashe, Rel. You have a lot of damage coming out. Mist is actually piloting the Viego this time. So swap out there as Kakalin and KTL are still on the Aphelios Thresh. Different skins though, so maybe different little skinergy going on to help them win out. But Retail Row already looking aggressive in lane, and this is what I like to see out of a LeBlanc. Already getting an early Electrocute proc off is so big. They took a bad trade there, but just asserting your dominance as a LeBlanc early is massive to make sure that later on this Syndra knows that they're always going to be on the back foot as soon as LeBlanc gets that first item.
It's a new bot lane now for Syndicate Coke. Last time it was that Caitlyn paired with the Renata Glass. This time they're going for a similar oppressive approach in the lane. They have Ashe, they have Rel, lots of CC to layer down onto an Aphelios. And we'll see if they can find themselves, as we do see quite the big trade in the mid lane, if they can apply more pressure than maybe they wanted to, or what they were able to get off in game number 1 this time around. We see Mist back on, or actually it was Chris last time that was playing the Viego in the loss there for Tilt Esports World Ender, but Mist has now picked it up, ready to bring it on. This is the 4th Viego of the split here for Mist, so we're ready to see how this player pilots that champion in the jungle.
Yeah, it makes you feel like last game it was really a pick away from Mist that Chris was playing, because I mean he had a decent Viego, but it wasn't quite the same, as the chains don't quite land onto Zed. Instead they catch a minion there, so not quite the damage output that Retail Row was looking for, but overall still a good bit of damage. As we're just getting fight after fight in this top side. This is a much different look coming out of 4th Espada, now on the Aatrox instead of the tanky boy Ornn. Weatherneck, now it's going to be a little bit harder, as they do get a good combo off there. 4th Espada is really going to have to heal up a bunch off of that.
It's crazy how aggressive these lanes are. You talked about Retail Row. Retail Row's been playing heavily aggressive as Weatherneck. Took a tower shot there in that extended trade, but here comes the Cloud. It's going to go down, and it's going to 4th Espada or it's going to force Espada, not 4th Espada. I'm tripping up on my words here, but the Aatrox has to flash away from that, but guess who's here? It's Chris. Guess who's here in the bot lane? It's Mist. The Shattering Strike will land. It's going to force the cleanse away from KTL, and the Gravitum will come through to prevent that play from happening any further, as 4th Espada is in some trouble here in the top side. Able to get a good chunk onto Chris, though, and Chris is going to waltz his way back towards the Scuttle Crab, so no deaths on either side of the map, but the junglers are getting involved.
Junglers are much more involved, much earlier for both of these teams, and I love the look. We're 4 minutes in, we've already seen our first ganks. Weatherneck and 4th Espada are going at each other's throats. This is the kind of League of Legends that is always fun to watch. Super exciting, excuse me. As it is going to be really on Weatherneck. Again, they have to play a lot more aggressive than they did last game to make plays happen. As Mist is doing exactly what you need to do early, is get in Kane's face. Don't let them easily get up to whichever form that they wish to take. I would expect a looking at the side of Syndicate Coke, I would want to see red form Kane here. I think they need a little bit more tankiness on the side of TES, but we'll have to see what they decide to go with, as since they already are looking more heavily towards this top side, I would expect them to be going more for that, as they should be able to get that a little bit earlier, as they did get a little bit of fighting off with Mist, and I would assume 4th Espada a little bit in that top side, but really it's going to be on what Retail Row does in the mid game to determine how this game goes. If LeBlanc can pop off, it's going to be very hard for this Aphelios and this Syndra to stay alive, but if for whatever reason Retail Row starts to drop, starts to falter, they can't get the same kind of oppressive feel that you'd like to see out of a LeBlanc, it's going to be a lot different, and it's going to be a lot more on Syndra and Aphelios taking over the game instead.
That it is. I do agree with your assessment in the Kayn. I think the red Kayn just makes more sense. You do need more frontline. Blue Kayn is hard to pilot. It's more of the solo queue pick there. There's lots of CC to navigate around, and with a little bit of armor items, especially in Viego, who's very happy to duel you, the Blue Kayn would be a little bit trickier in my assessment of this. There's been constant push from Weatherneck in the top side. This should just lead to the first trio of grubs being taken here by Chris, and on the other side of the map is Mist, and so this might just be your typical buff for buff neutral objective trade as the Viego makes his way down to that Mountain Drake. Death Sentence connects. Kakalin finds those hooks that he was finding very much in game number 1. But again, it's the pressure down here in the bot side. They're playing the Aphelios. They have to play through that rough early game and see if they can get themselves out of it, just like the way they did last time around, although they didn't quite have the setup they needed to carry the game. This time it may change.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot more setup this game. I don't know if it's going to be enough with what I saw last game. Just they had some good looks, but the oversteps weren't quite enough as LeBlanc has hit 6 and is looking to go in with that double distort already. Good pressure, though. You can already see them playing around this mid lane, knowing that LeBlanc is the one that they have to get ahead. Syndra is very immobile, very easy to gank, and they're already setting up this tower dive. As you can see, this Rel is sitting in the Raptor camp area and getting over that wall. Crashdown doesn't quite land, though, and that's rough. Just not quite able to land that.
You waste a little bit of time there, although the wave is pushing. There's not much pressure put onto Solo Mason by Kakalin and KTL, so the Ashe will not suffer for that. The Rel will miss a little bit of XP, but that isn't the end of the world. I expect to see that play attempted more often here, as Fourth Espada is in a dangerous spot. Doesn't have flash, but he's going to spot out Chris here on the ward, who did grab the grubs, did actually steal away the red buff away from Mist, as well as Retail Row gets the electrocute proc. And a nice scatter of the week there from Zed will trade a little bit of damage back, but it feels like this LeBlanc is very much in control of this lane. So this is 2 lanes that are in control here for Syndicate Coke in the early goings of the game, but we've had a much slower game compared to last time around. There's already a couple of kills at this point, so maybe a little bit of caution to the wind both of these teams are throwing towards each other, especially Telt Esports World Ender, because they don't want to drop down in this series. They're still fighting for that #1 spot, but even a slower game for them, it's solid for them. Kayn will get those stacks, and then the Aphelios will continue to scale.
Yeah, and you can see already a different itemization coming out from the Aphelios, going for the Culls early to make sure that they can get a little bit more gold in their pocket as they farm up everything. And then Zed have below that mana, that's expected. The downside of that is 15 CS down, essentially. LeBlanc not in a position you want to be, because LeBlanc is going to be exerting a lot of pressure in this lane, and it's not going to be easy for this to really be able to stand up to LeBlanc once that first item comes through. And I'm surprised LeBlanc hasn't picked up a Dark Seal, knowing that kind of aggression can actually play out some good points for them with getting a little bit extra AP early on from it.
And at least for the moment, though, the 20 CS lead that Retail Row has been able to accrue here will suffice. Working towards that first item, might want to spike earlier on that first item to get towards that spike faster for a potential Drake fight that is to come up. With a couple of kills, that is definitely something we might see in the future, is that Dark Seal, and maybe even a Medjai Soul Stealer if things really start to get out of hand for Tilt Esports when dealing with this LeBlanc on the map. We see the farm is very even for both of these junglers, and now we look at the top side here. It's a stacked wave for Weatherneck, is down in CS. It might even out when this wave is collected, but Fourth Espada was struggling to get priority and now is doing himself a good job. But with that comes the ability for you to be ganked. Has flash. The actual ultimate from Kayn is going to be insanely good to follow that flash, but it's not enough damage there. The Kayn is not yet at form. They do have Weatherneck's ultimate, though. This should be an easy dive. Chris can use the flash to get away from this one, and that should be the finish off with the Cloud. The trade back might actually come through with the Infernal Chains. That is so unlucky there for Weatherneck, and so good for Fourth Espada to trade 1-for-1 in that situation. And all of that CS, I do believe, was missed.
It was, and that was a huge play there by Fourth Espada to go 1-for-1. Yes, Kane gets an assist off that, so net positive over to TES because of the first blood gold plus the assist gold.
Wow. But this should be Zed having to burn flash, or doesn't even have the flash. That's a kill that's going to go to miss. So good pickup there. I said they were going to go for that play again, and they do. This time it's successful.
Yeah, I mean, again, the only downside is, yeah, Chris got it. It's the Viego. They play a lot of Viego, so you'd expect them to be able to pilot it a little bit better than Chris. But I want that kill going over to LeBlanc. I want that gold on LeBlanc so they can start taking over this match earlier in the game. Still a good look for them as they are going to pick up the second round of grubs as we are 11 minutes into the game. And for Chris, you're kind of lost on the map for a little bit. Either Dragon's not up, your mid laner really can't step up into lane. I mean, look at this, the impact distance-wise that LeBlanc has over Syndra is massive. With the distort, the double distort, you're looking at a screen and a half of potential engage distance from this LeBlanc with the double distort plus the chains on top of that. So you have to be really careful with how Syndra is stepping up into lane, how they're being covered by Chris, because you have to remember, as Chris, you can't just immediately ult onto LeBlanc. You have to wait for those distorts to either be used to jump back or to time out so you don't get pulled too deep into the enemy team. And then there's an issue there, but they're gonna just because of recall timings, they're gonna get onto this dragon first and have get dragon. It's gonna be a few sec for TES.
Yes, and sure if I can be, I do have a bit of issue seeing on right now, but it can't see the dragon
on our side here.
Oh, here we go.
Right.
I now see. Okay, I'm back. I hear. Is everything good? We're seeing a big 1v1 happen. Icefire, you can hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. You glitched out a little bit, but it's all good.
Oh, okay.
It's the stream of tech issues. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's been a constant battle for us this time around. But we're battling through it, and we're back. And it looks like the dragon went down. Yes, it did. Okay, so that's in the hands of Tilt Esports. The 1v1 didn't go anyone's way, but still, it's TES that is in the backseat right now. They are backs against the wall here. If they drop in this game, they will lose the series. And it's Syndicate Coke that are trying to hold on to their flawless record here. 5-0 right now in the Titan Conquer League, looking to improve that, and they're looking good right now. The LeBlanc is ahead. The Aatrox with the denied wave is up a ton of CS. Bot lane has been slow, but the playmaking potential of the Ashe is always there. And so the next big thing to look towards is this Rift Herald, and item completions are coming through from both sides. So it should be a very even fight, if a fight does come down. But, you know, Chris is on the other side of the map, so it doesn't look like that is actually going to end up happening.
No, and I'm really expecting everybody to be playing around Zed and Weatherneck. The bot lane is going to bot lane. It's Ashe and Rel. You're not going to be able to push them out very easily. It's going to be all about this mid and top and getting them ahead, because Ashe is always going to have that enchanted crystal arrow. Aphelios is always going to have some sort of damage on the back end, so you're just letting them scale up, kind of ignoring them a little bit except around Dragon, and the rest of it you're going to be focusing this top side because you want to get these fighters ahead and make sure that you're in a better position the later on the game gets.
They have the Rift Herald. They're going for the gank here onto Weatherneck. Does have flash, does have the ultimate here. This is going to get the shield. Might not have to use any of them. Going to hold on to both of these summoner spells, but you got to use something here. And it's not really going to work out for you. Weatherneck doesn't use the flash. Weatherneck drops in the top lane as Chris has been spotted out here inside of Syndicate Coast jungle as well. He's going to try and flash towards the lantern. Going to be able to bring himself back here. The hook will land onto Solo Mason, but they should just be able to push forward here. But what can Zed get done here in this place? Scatter the Weak is going to land onto the Rel. They're going to lock her up. up. Frozen Spud should just be locked out of this fight, and Chris will secure that kill. They get something thanks to the roam back from their mid laner.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think they're going to lose the top lane tier 1, though, as Chris is actually getting jumped on by Retail Row and gets taken down so low, 150 health there. As there is first tower going to Aatrox, who has 150 gold bounty, has that Black Cleaver completed, and from here on out, Volibear is going to be on the back foot. Yes, they have a lot of tanky stats available to them, but it's going to be very difficult for them to really be able to utilize them effectively, considering the healing that this Aatrox can bring out. And there's no anti-heal yet on the side of TES. Now, I'm expecting that double cloth armor to be built into the Bramble Vest, but that's still a few minutes away, and it's not going to be easy for him, as Retail Row is they put on their dancing shoes and they are putting on a tap dance show for Zed, who is just sitting there in awe, because that's all you can do at that point.
Leatherneck caught out. Infernal Chains will bring him back. Let's see if the flash is utilized this time. Might have to end up burning it. There's no tower here around this Tri-Brush to save him, and it is going to be Mist that's going to get involved in this play. But Chris and Zed are here for the follow-up, but that's going to be the bear dropping very quickly, and Zed might now be the next target. Does have the flash to try and get himself away, but that's not going to be enough. There is too many gap closers here for Syndicate Coke. They are running their opponents in this game too, and they are feeling good right now.
And right now, it feels like there's a mental boom of sorts from game 1 to game 2. As Syndicate Coke, they have come out swinging, ready to fight early, and for TES, they're just, it feels like they're a little bit lost on how they want to play it. They're not winning out on these fights that they need to win out on if they're taking them, and Syndicate Coke is just dragging it further and further ahead. Already a 4,000 gold lead, 2 towers down at 17 and a quarter minutes in. I mean, at this point of last game, we were still waiting for the first tower to fall, it felt like, and now in this game, 2 towers have fallen, and Syndicate Coke has a stranglehold over this game.
The pace has just exploded, and Syndicate Coke is riding with all the momentum now. They claim the Cloud Drake. It feels at this point that this is obviously their game to lose, but it feels like they are going to be able to run with this one. I mean, the composition here, I don't see a lot of life in it. You know, you still have KTL to look towards, but this top side seems pretty doomed. You're very far behind top lane, and the Kane doesn't like to play from behind here, as Zed is going to be the victim of a tower dive right now. The Herald should charge. They're going to utilize the teleport, but the Herald's stuck on the minions. This is actually what one of these teams did in the previous game, and I think it was Syndicate Coke that ended up failing the Herald here. So they're 0 for 2 on these. Very anticlimactic way to happen. Unfortunate.
We're 1 for 1 on them right now. We're 1 for 1 on it. It was TES last game, yeah.
Oh, it was. I do remember the Viego.
Yeah, it was 1 for 1. But overall, that's actually still a net positive play. Even though they didn't get the Herald crash, they got the TP out of Leatherneck. So now the only player with TP on the side of TES is Zed. So as long as you can keep them in a side lane, Retail Row has the ability to stop them from getting into a fight. You can take technically an even fight in the sense of you have members that are equal, but the gold is not going to be equal for those sides, and I would have to favor the side of Syndicate Coke in that sense, just because of how much stronger they feel right now. But Kane has picked up the red form like we expected, and we'll have to see what they decide to do with that, how they decide to play, as they are going to be the tankiest member, it feels like, once they're able to complete their second item. But it's still, there's a long way off before I would really consider this comp to be one that can compete with what Syndicate Coke have for themselves right now.
One of the big problems I see with the composition that Tilt Esports World Ender have is the Syndra doesn't want a side lane. She doesn't want a side lane, period. Regardless of what the matchup is, Syndra has been a mage in League of Legends that really hates the side lane. And that's one of the problems that she suffers from. Well, Retail Row, on the other hand, loves the side lane, loves the 1v1, wants to be isolated with the Syndra permanently. So there's a real side lane problem right now for Tilt Esports. The enemy Aatrox is so far ahead, your Volibear can't contend, your mid laner can't contend with her lane assignment, and there's constant push in the mid lane with the Ashe and the Static Shiv. So all of this pressure is really boiling up here for Syndicate Coke. They have full control of the jungle. It seems like they have the ability to get any fight that they want on their terms, which is a huge factor which might lead to their success in this mid game. And I worry to see how Tilt Esports are going to be able to combat that fact.
Now, one thing that TES is a little bit happy with is the fact that it's a Cloud Soul for them instead of one of the more combat-oriented souls that they would struggle with more, just because of the pure combat stats. But so that's one saving grace, because it's really just movement speed. I am personally not a fan of it. I think it's the weakest of all of the souls that could be picked up as a soul. But overall,
Zed's got no flash. Zed, the enchanted crystal arrow from Solo Mason is beautiful. I don't even think they needed it because this Syndra is a sitting duck. But this is what I was talking about here, the Fire Ice, was because they don't have control over these sides. They can TP back to mid, they get a free pick, and they're taking over.
Yeah, and now Retail Row is fearless. They have the Dark Seal now, a little bit late, but I mean, it works. And they're now they're starting to take over. You can see that they didn't get the kill onto Zed, but the pressure that they exerted and the chunks of health that they took from Zed set up that play that allowed for the crash down from everybody else to secure that kill, secure the bot lane tier 1. And now TES are solidly on the back foot. They're almost 6,000 gold down. And there's really nowhere on the map that they can play from. Chris is being pushed out of his own jungle by 4th Espada there. And that just shows just how dire this game is for TES right now.
I wonder if after this Cloud Drake spawns, if Syndicate Coke decide that they want to just force a Baron down. And what I mean by force a Baron down is not necessarily take it for free, because of course TES will be wanting to contest that Baron, but just force Tilt Esports to get over to that Baron and try and fight them, because otherwise they'll take that free Baron. At this point in the game, you're 6,000 ahead of 22 minutes. That is an enormous gold lead to have. Almost everyone will be at an item completion over their counterparts. You can see the gold difference in the top lane, and bot lane is finished there, 2 items on the way to a Shadow Flame, and very close to a Shadow Flame is Retail Row. So I would like to see that type of play come through. River control on the top side, they get this Cloud Drake. All right, you could play for Soul, but I feel like with the lead that they have, Baron immediately after is probably, or at least should be, the play.
It should be, yes. They're gonna get this dragon, and and like you said, I hope that they transfer topside. 4th Espada here is gonna be caught out a little bit. I don't think they're actually gonna be able to actually kill them, as Retail Row's just diving turrets here, and that's gonna be rough. Now they do get this top lane tier 1, just because there's 2 of them. Weatherneck and Chris are still a formidable duo that 4th Espada can't quite handle just yet. That might Insta-cleanse.
Insta-cleanse. And you're right, they get the tier 1 trade in the top lane. Not really going to be exactly what they want, and in 5 minutes time, it's that Cloud Soul. A Soul you said wasn't the strongest here from the side of Syndicate Coke. Maybe they lucked out on that, as Weatherneck wants to play. They get the TP out, not bad. I feel like it can just be Syndicate Coke here to pull the trigger on the Baron. They just start hitting it and see what the response will be from Tilt Esports. But they're taking away jungle camps. They've lost control over their jungle. They're bleeding out resources. There's still tier 2s on the map for Syndicate Coke to take, and that they can use to balloon their gold lead even further. But for the moment, I mean, the pace has been slowed down, and if Syndicate Coke continue to not really push the issue, then this is an avenue to bring KTL into a position once again where they're happy to try and carry. They're almost on that Infinity Edge spike.
And it's going to be up to Chris and Weatherneck. Those are the 2 strongest members. They have to be the ones that start that play. Catch out Retail Row on one of their aggressive looks to be able to make something happen. It's not going to be easy, because that's really the main damage. It's either Mist or Retail Row. Catch one of them and you have a shot, but look how tanky Mist is already. They have the Sundered Sky, they have the Blade of the Ruined King, and they are a force to be reckoned with not only the damage, but the health bar that they have to work through it as well. So now, not only are you down on damage, you don't have the health bars to really contend with this that you need, and you aren't getting the gold that you need either. Now, the downside for Syndicate Coke right now is you're in this ping pong stage where you're just bouncing waves off of TES and you're handing them gold, which is the last thing that you want to be doing. You need to be denying them these waves, denying them gold, and trying to force plays that they're at a disadvantage for. So forcing a fight around Baron is the perfect play to make right now. Because Syndra's not there, they're going to have to TP in. You can isolate that out, or just say, hey, you TP'd in, we get to back off, and now you're down to TP, so that means Weatherneck has to be the one splitting, and then you're going to have other issues. But look at Retail Row here.
This should just be Kakalin that's down. They're layering a bunch of CC there. The flash forward, the Magnet Storm will bring him back in. He tanks up a lot of abilities, though, but it will be the successful pick for Syndicate Coke inside of the mid lane. Now, what do they do with this Icefire? Do they actually leverage the Baron? It doesn't look like they're going to. They're going to take away jungle camps. I don't know if this is enough. They should probably push for a tier 2, whether it's the mid lane, whether it is the bot lane. And 4 grouped up strong in the mid lane right now from the side of TES. That's going to be read immediately by Solo Mason. It's going to open up the door for pressure in the side lanes to be opened up. But they get the pick. They don't really get a whole lot else here. So still, this isn't the worst case scenario that it could possibly be for TES.
Absolutely. I mean, TS is doing a good job of not bleeding out too much of their resources. They're losing resources left, right, and center, but it's not an excessive amount. Yes, you lost Kakalin there, but at the end of the day, that's your support. They're already back up, and you didn't lose Baron. Dragon Soul wasn't on the map, so overall, it was a pick and not even a tower. So you're not going to complain too much about that in the grand scheme of things with where the current map state is right now.
And now it seems like with 1 minute to go on the Soul, this was the play all along inside of the Syndicate Coke playbook was, guys, let's just chillax. Let's not throw. Let's play for Soul. In the end, it's not as aggressive as you could possibly be, but it's better than throwing the game and making plays that you're not prepared to really execute on. So now is the time that they are actually going to force the issue. They will step up to this dragon when it spawns, and it should be the contest from TES. Although it is a Cloud Drake, there's still lots of value they can get from that Soul. You know, Aatrox with the World Ender loves the movement speed. Viego on his resets might like the movement speed as well. LeBlanc with the Mimic abilities could like it too. But Fourth Espada is going to be a target. This would be a huge pick that they could get right before that Soul fight happens. As Fourth Espada uses the flash, Weatherneck will commit the ultimate, but the E ability will bring him over the wall and to safety. Solo Mason now has time to hit down onto this tower. And this is going to be an interesting situation now because they're hitting onto the Baron.
And this is a good play by TES. This is exactly what they needed to do. Now they need to win the fight. Aatrox is going to be TPing in, and they have to back off. They had to try it, though.
Is going to miss the crash down here, but the arrow will connect onto Weatherneck. Has the lantern there to try and bring him back, but that is interrupted on the side of the fight. Retail Row picks up a solo kill onto KTL, and this is where the game will finally collapse. The bridge that was holding the hope of TES has now fallen under the might of Syndicate Coke. They grab the Baron, and they will probably run straight towards that Soul immediately after.
Yeah, and they're going to be on a timer here. They have to just go immediately unless they want to give it up now. Retail Row has the teleport, but from the side of TS, they're not even going to look to contest it right now. It just feels like they're giving it up because they know if they lose that fight, they kind of just lose the game, even though they're in that state already. As Retail Row, they know that someone's here, but they don't know who, and it was lucky that it was Kakalin with the hook, because Retail Row probably would have killed somebody else, even if it is just Chris.
It's going to be a death sentence, and this LeBlanc has to be careful. That distortion was canceled. Going to have to use that. That's a dead LeBlanc. The kill goes to Thresh, which is very unfortunate here for TES, but you're just getting too over-aggressive. Is Retail Row kind of playing with too much confidence there when nobody's there to follow up? Zed has to burn the flash from the crash down. I still don't think that a contest is possible here from TES. They don't have their top laner here. It should just be a raw 3 versus 3. Actually 3 versus 4 because the rest of their team is here. It's going to be played slow around the Cloud Drake, but that was just an unnecessary death there from Retail Row, and that's going to be a detriment to the team. Let's see if they can pull off this fight here. As the 4 grouped up strong, they're just going to give this Drake. They're going to go for the towers. I think this is the right play given the situation that just played out.
They're probably going to take an inhib off of this. They have the wave, they have Ashe, they have all of their players except for Retail Row up. They can grab an inhib here and back off and potentially even look for a fight because they have all of their ultimates except for the Enchanted Crystal Arrow up and available. So if they wanted to take the fight, they could. Instead, they're going to back off, make sure that they don't get collapsed upon by the Volibear, and be in a very good position. They've cracked an inhib. Now they have pressure through this mid lane. They can now do a 4-1, 3-2 split on the top and bot lanes and just start to slowly choke out the rest of the resources from the squad. And it looks like they're going to form up into a 4-1 split here, with LeBlanc just going to escort in mid lane as Weatherneck is in top lane and Chris is in the jungle. That's actually going to be really rough because they don't really have what they need in order to contest this wave in the bot side. And with the mid crashing, it's not going to be easy. They do manage to take out that cannon, which is one of the hardest things to do, but they're just getting pushed in, and there's not much they can do.
The next wave is here. The 4 now. Weatherneck is here. Chris is back. They're 5 grouped up strong, but these super minions, they're hitting onto their... They're sending all 5 to defend your Nexus Towers. This is definitely a mistake because now you lose the inhibitor. They definitely only one was needed to defend that, but we might see a fight break off, but I think it's Bane to go in on this Aatrox, who's going to heal his whole HP off of the World Ender. There's going to be the first kill. It's going to be a 1-for-1. The trade will be the Rel. Chris flashes away, but too far forward goes Mist. And this is KTL once again with his damage, with his team holding back their opponents. And they hold on to the game, but they lose 2 inhibitors.
A little bit too far from Syndicate Coke there, 100%. But they still got the inhibitor. They have a little bit of damage onto the turret, but now they can just 5-man stack this top side. Like, that's all they have to do at this point. As long as these inhibitors are going to be flowing in with these super minions, stack this top side, force them to make decisions, right? That's all you have to do at this point. You don't have to worry too much about Dragon. Yes, you want it. Yes, you want to get that soul. But the thing is with that then brings up the Elder Dragon, which if that's like the one thing that TES is looking forward to. If they can get that Elder Dragon, that means that they have the buff that they need in order to win these fights and potentially turn this game around. So for TES, want them to take the Dragon. But for Syndicate Coke, you don't need the Dragon. You can just start crashing down on this last inhib and forcing decisions to be made across the map, because that's exactly what you're trying to do here with Retail Row going in there.
And they don't need that soul. They don't want the game to get to that soul. They understand that the game can be flipped at that point. If they do secure the Elder Soul, does Syndicate Coke, they will obviously win the game. But they don't want to run that risk. So they want to grab the soul. They want to end the game right here, right now. And they have the means to do it. Retail Row does have to be careful. He did get picked off last time around. Kakalin has shown that he is quite the gnarly Thresh player here and can land hooks when it matters. It's Mist that's a little disconnected from the team, so it's going to be 5 versus 4 for the moment. And Syndicate Coke, they identify this. They're on their way moving back, but they can't extend too far forward. Can test because they will get collapsed on. There are minions that are being shuffled into their base. This is where their base defense skills are really going to be tested. This could be the final siege if it goes the way of Syndicate Coke here.
Now, Baron buff has worn off, so it's going to be a little bit easier for these minions to get cleared out. But even still, with Mist here in the base, you're starting to have attentions diverted from everybody else's. Retail Row is going to jump over that wall and dish out so much damage. And this is the Syndicate Coke is playing as well as they could. They're going to force the cleanse out of Solo Mason, but there's just no follow-up damage. And because KTL is just not in a position to be able to dish it out. And they can just keep on choking out the resources of TES and forcing more members back to defend their Nexus turrets.
Mist is just emoting on him here. Standing there, pushing out the mid wave. But they're holding on for the moment right now. They're losing HP on this inhibitor tower very slowly. The soul is coming up in 50 seconds. So when does Syndicate Coke make the decision to say, okay, the siege is over for now. Let's go set up around this Drake? They might not even want to do that. They might just want to continue the siege. They feel like it's working for them. KTL is opposite the rest of his team. But the recalls are being channeled here. And it will be fourth Espada. Not actually going to go back because the death sentence does cancel that one out. As the dragon is vastly approaching, I think they have made the decision now that they want to get back and they want to contest around this Cloud Drake. And it might be a difficult contest here for TES, not only because they are behind in gold, but because there's also going to be super minions shuffling into their base while this happens. Right now, they have to be careful getting picked, but they're backing off. All right, they're good.
Yeah, and I mean, they needed to back off. They didn't have Baron buff. They need to reset, spend the gold that they built up, set up for Baron, and try to draw out a fight away from those Nexus turrets. As Mist is just going to solo out Dragon here, and no one's going to contest it because they're so worried about Baron, which is the smart play from TES. You can give up the soul. It's not going to be that big of a difference for you, and you can now make a concerted effort towards Baron potentially and just clean up these waves that have been crashing into your base, push them out so that you can push into your jungle a little bit easier. But it's too little too late. It feels like his Baron's already started and they don't even realize it's happening, and it's just gonna, they have it on Scuttle Vision, but they're not even gonna contest because they know they're gonna lose the fight. They lose the game. They'd rather fight around their Nexus turrets since their inhibitors are coming up.
I feel like this is the wrong decision from TES. They needed to be ready to fight for either the Soul or the Baron. They can't give both, because now, yes, okay, if you die at the Baron, you lose the game, but your chances of winning this fight now with Soul here for the other team and Baron empowered minions pushing in, it plummets. So I think the better option would have been to fight around the Baron, but we're going to see how good their defense is, because it's now or never for them. The death sentence will go wide. Here comes the mini wave that's going to shuffle in. The inhibitor has respawned in the mid lane, but will be immediately dropped once again by Retail Row. The bottom lane inhibitor will likely follow suit. And it was the exact same situation that we were in just a couple minutes ago here, Icefire, although this time it's Baron for Syndicate Coke, and I do believe that this time around, with that extra buff, they should be able to successfully pull off this siege. It's about to break down. I'm ready for it to happen. There is the cleanse from KTL as Chris is here taking up in the front line for the squad, but the engage is in. Look at that Magnet Storm. It is absolutely massive, but where is the follow-up here from Syndicate Co? Can Solo Mason do enough damage? Retail Row is taken down Zed to start the fight off, and it will continue. Health bars are so very low, but whether that can't deal the damage in the front line, this should just be the end of the game for Syndicate Coke as Colin will drop. Now the AD carry will follow. That Aphelios is down. It is Chris who is left alive, only to watch the remainders of his Nexus towers fall, the remainder of his team's undefeated series streak drop, and it will be the undefeated game record maintained for Syndicate Coke here in the Titan Conqueror League.
And it was a dominating series coming out from Syndicate Coke. There wasn't a question in this second game of who was going to win. It was Syndicate Coke from the beginning, from the very first fight that we saw. And from then on out, it was just them having to close out the game. So for what we saw from game 1 to game 2, Syndicate Coke stepped up in their early game and said, we're not going to let them even have a chance in the early game, and instead just shut everything down and pushed everything aside. And it was on the back of Mist and Retail Row from just having a dominating performance. You can see in the scoreboard here, 20,000 damage from this LeBlanc. Yes, Aphelios did more, but they did so much damage coming out from the LeBlanc. Solo Mason holding it down in the bot lane, allowing Frozen Spuds to roam when needed and to make those plays to get Retail Row and Mist ahead. Just a really well done game from the side of Syndicate Coke.
And the only criticism I would give to them is the fact that they were very far ahead. They could have pushed the issue and threaded the needle a little bit harder. So for improvements with this team, you're already at the top of the Titan Conqueror League right now at 3-0, undefeated game and series record. But to improve this team even more, if they can be a team that can really get you down while you are at a goal deficit to them and be able to end those games even quicker without actually throwing them away, because that might have been what they were afraid of, was we don't want to throw, we have this game in the bag if we just play it slow. That's fair, but they could be an even more devastating team if they apply that faster pace of game. But for the moment, it's working, and this team looks like one of the teams to be. It is the team to be right now in the Titan Conqueror League. And for the other side, it was a close game in game number 1 there for our Tilted Esports World Enders, but they just weren't able to bring it in game number 2. And yeah, what do you think was the main detriment as a closing point for this series for the side of Tilted Esports, and what they should maybe improve on and take away from this series?
It's decisiveness. They had the lead in game 1. They weren't able to push it, and they went too far in some of these fights, feeling that the game was going away from them, and it caused them to lose the game instead. So they need to be decisive when they're ahead and when they know that they have that lead, and be able to close out those fights the way that they need to and not overstep. But they also have to understand that it's a fine balancing point on a knife's edge like that, and understanding when not to go in as well. So it's learning that balance of keep pushing forward without going too far. I think it's hard to learn, but it's one that if they can master that, they will be a very formidable force in the very near future in the Conqueror League.
Well, that was our first matchup that was featured on the broadcast for Group A here. We had top of the ladder matchup, and it was Syndicate Coke that came out on top. We will see you all next week for week 4. I want to thank each and every one of you who stuck through the tribulations of this stream. We had a little problems, but we were able to fix them, still able to bring you these games. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Also, thank you to our producers and observers there, Chris and Wookie, who are working hard to get things working behind the scenes. And we will see you all in the next stream. Hope everyone has a great week. Everyone has a great night, and take care.